Extra Time on Tipp FM, powered by Munster Solar, your local solar experts, delivering clean, cost-effective energy solutions for a brighter tomorrow. See munstersolar.ie.
Hello, good evening and welcome to another edition of Extra Time. My name is Ronan Quirk. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, we're here until 8 o'clock this evening. Our text number is 083 311 3311. That works for WhatsApp messages as well, 083 311 3311. You can also contact us on Blue Sky, extra time at bsky.social. It's where you'll find us on the Blue Sky social media forum. But 083 311 3311 is our text message, and they're coming in thick and fast. 2 discussion points for the panellists. 1, penalty should have been retaken as Billy Nolan came off his line. He did that in some. He was about 2 metres off his line by the time the ball was struck. Number 2, says this texter, why can't we get better ball into John McGrath? Low ball, hopping in front of him is what we need, says Paul in Burris. 083 311 3311 is our text number. We will have analysis and reaction, but first let's hear from Liam Cahill, who spoke to the assembled media after it finished Waterford 3-24, Tipperary 1-30 in Walsh Park yesterday. A draw.
Disappointed maybe not to win the game, but relieved to get something out of it as well. And I'd say a titanic battle, I'd say, for the supporters in the stand. I'd imagine it was a real exciting game to look at. Loads of quality, plenty of mistakes as well, and loads of excitement. So, but that is Munster Championship. That's what we expect from this competition now. And look, we go away from today ourselves and get our head around again the few areas we need to improve on. But hats off to Waterford, and great credit to our guys as well. Went 2 down there, looked like the dam had busted and everything was gone, and came back and went 3 out again. Really, really good character from our boys. And a couple of big matches coming again, but we have a couple of weeks now to get our heads around the Clare game, which will be a vital game as well.
And did you sense at Liam at half time, you were clear on the scoreboard, did you sense that Waterford were going to come back and hit hard to start the second half like the way they did?
Yeah, you talk about it, you try to visualise it, you try to prepare your players for it, but when it comes, it takes a life of its own. And we knew we weren't going to be, the second half was going to be all of what it was outside. It's just Waterford hurt us in so many areas. If we could have maybe had another option to bring on 3 or 4 more subs, we could have done it. We seem to be labouring in so many areas and trying to get a handle on all this Waterford movement, attacking in droves and getting onto breaks and what have you. It was just really frantic, but thankfully we got a handle on it there with the number of substitutions and kind of stemmed the tide a little bit and kicked for home. And disappointed probably didn't see out the match, to be honest.
You had 4 substitutions just for the start of the game from the team that was listed during the week. A couple of injuries, things like that. Was that all a factor? And was it just something that was held in reserve a little to kind of surprise Waterford to some degree if possible?
No, not necessarily. I think it's down to form. It's in our setup, it's the next man up. If things don't maybe run your way on a championship day, or any day for that matter, the competition is really good. We had a few little things all right with knocks and that we need to get our heads around, so hence we didn't do too much surgery on our team from I suppose a PR perspective. The new rules with the team being released at 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock on a Friday is really difficult, because we only have our team meetings on a Friday leading into a Sunday game. So being able to get to players in the meantime would have been quite difficult to announce the decisions that we had made. So we just let the same team to print, really. I know it's not ideal, but just with the short run in, it was quite difficult. But as your question, the number of changes were made on the back of the Sunday previous performance, really, to be honest. It's trying to look at areas to improve on and get the personnel on to try and improve the areas that let us down, and obviously opposition dictate that as well.
Last year you got a draw in the first match against Limerick and it kick-started the whole season. You've got it in the second match this time around. You'll be hoping for a similar response.
Yeah, absolutely. We're on the same number of points as we were this time last year, so very similar actually in ways. And look, we'll take a lot of confidence out of today. You know, we had to come with a big performance after last Sunday, and we got that today. A little bit patchy in the second half for too long of a period again. Something similar actually to what happened is again Cork last weekend. But again, huge strides made, and lots of players coming into good form now as we head into the real business end of the championship.
That's Liam Cahill speaking to the assembled media after that drawn game in Walsh Park yesterday. JJ Kennedy's on the line. Good evening to you, JJ.
Hi, Ronan.
JJ, last week you described the Cork result as a 4-point hammering. How would you describe the 324 to 130 result in Walsh Park yesterday?
Yeah, it was. I suppose nominally it's a draw, but it did feel like a defeat, given the way that we had played. I guess the way that we played in the first half to begin with, which was streets ahead of the form we showed against Cork the previous week. It was much sharper, much more energy, and very economical in the way we were taking scores. And then even when we had our down period in the second half, the third quarter particularly, where they really got on top of us, and it looked curtains really at that stage when they went 2 points up. But the manner in which we came back again and turned it around and went back into a 3-point lead, only to be caught with that sucker punch at the very end. So it did, in the immediate aftermath of it particularly, it felt more like a defeat than a draw, but that's just the initial disappointment. I suppose, looking at it since, when you weigh everything up, I think that there were a lot of positives. That there are negatives, and there are areas and so on that are serious concern, but that there certainly were positives, and I was actually in my mind comparing it very much to the Clare game last year. If you remember, it was a match again where we went well clear. We went 10 points ahead at one stage, and they just came roaring back at us and drew level, and we had to push on a second time, and we did, and we came close to being caught for a levelling goal in that one as well.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen on that occasion. It did on this occasion. So it's unfortunate that the draw would have been fantastic. It would have been great, just to be able to drive on from that. But it is what it is, and it still leaves us hanging there with some prospect, however slimmer it is.
Do you take any solace from the fact we're in exactly the same position this year as we were last year? Played 2, 1 draw, 1 defeat, and we got out of Munster with 2 subsequent wins. But the fixture list is less kind than it was last year.
Yeah, no, the problem, the difference from last year was that our first 2 games were against Limerick and Cork. So we had the 2 big ones out of the way after the first 2 rounds, and we had 1 point got from those. So we had I suppose the fixtures that we would have targeted more still to come in Waterford and Clare. So there's limited comfort in pointing out that we're at the same position with just 1 point following 2 games. But we still there are possibilities there. We know the way this championship goes. There are going to be swings and roundabouts. There are going to be ups and downs and surprises. And when you hear of some of the injuries, that Cork have sustained yesterday, and you see the people that Limerick are going to be without next weekend when they take on Clare, anything is possible. You really don't know how this is going to pan out. But I suppose from our perspective, we'd be hoping to beat Clare, and then you would need Clare, I guess, to lose their remaining games to Cork and Limerick, and that could let us in. That's one of the avenues that could let us in. Now we'll have to wait and see how that pans out next Sunday in Ennis, which is going to be a huge fixture, really.
Okay, so we've 3 weeks off. I'm not so sure that's coming at the right time. If you look at the performance against Cork, where we looked rusty, the performance against and also lacking in energy, which was, I think, the key point from the Cork game, and fumbling and handling errors. Then you had yesterday where the handling was improved, particularly in the first half. The energy levels were improved, but now we've got a 3-week break, much like the end of a league campaign to the start of the championship. It didn't seem to be particularly well managed the last time for a variety of unknowns. Hopefully we're not going to replicate that. Or is that a challenge for Liam and Mikey?
I don't think it is, really. I think teams often regard maybe a fortnight's break as the ideal in these situations. the first week is kind of recovery after the game you just played, and then the next week you're focused on the next instalment. 3 weeks then is just that extra bit of time. I think I think they'll view that as okay, and it gives them time to address what went wrong in that second half and in the third quarter particularly, where Waterford just got a handle on us, and we were really caught in a vice grip at that stage. We just couldn't win possession. They just crowded it out around their half-back line, midfield area. They had numbers back. They just smothered us, and they were hoovering up possession and moving forward then at pace with plenty of runners and so on, and we couldn't handle it.
Were we slow to react?
You mean react on the sideline?
Yeah, and not just personnel changes, but perhaps positional changes that may needed to have been made. I'm particularly conscious of the way Jamie Barron grew, or perhaps was allowed grow into the game.
I think in fairness to Liam Cahill, he mentions that there were so many fires that you were trying to put out at one time, so it was very difficult. Normally if there's one area maybe where you're having problems in, you can make a switch or you can bring in a sub, but if you have 3, 4 or 5 different areas where you're trying to battle for some bit of a foothold, it can be very difficult. They did bring in 4 subs, and I guess the subs did well. Stefan Tobin did extremely well, and which is very encouraging to see. And Dara Stakelum got on the score sheet as well and contributed. So the subs did have an impact, but you are limited in these circumstances, and particularly when the thing just goes so heavily against you. And it was really worrying in that particular phase of the game, the extent to which Waterford got a handle on us, and we just couldn't seem to break it. But thankfully they did break it. That was the positive thing, I suppose. It was just that sucker punch at the end that, in a sense, maybe undid some of the good. In the way that we did eventually get on top of them again to go back into the lead.
I think what's frustrating is we all knew what was coming. We all knew Billy Nolan was going to drop it down on the edge of the square, and you're kind of looking at it through your fingers because you're dreading a repeat perhaps of the under-20 events of last Wednesday night, and yet you feel like the players who themselves know what's coming are almost powerless to stop it, which is kind of frustrating.
Yeah, it was looking through the fingers time really in the final phase. Doesn't it highlight again a point that I sometimes make, and in all the modern sort of tactical game that we play and the short passing game that we play and all of this sort of stuff, that there's still plenty of profits to be had from the old-fashioned long ball into the full forward line and get onto the breaks. I mean, you mentioned the under-20. Clare's 2 goals came off precisely that.
Yeah.
One of our goals in that under-20 match came off the same situation, and you look at how Waterford profited from it. Again, it's amazing it's not used more often, because when a ball drops in there, and unless there's somebody claiming possession, a sort of Hugh Lawler or somebody who's grabbing it in the air, other than that, it's going to break, and there's serious jeopardy when a ball breaks around in front of your goal mouth. It can literally go any place, and that's how we got caught. The tough thing, I think, in that final phase of play yesterday was that Rona Maher had gone upfield and scored the final point to put us 3 up, but then play was transferred down so fast that I don't think he could get back in time. And that left us, a little bit exposed. I think Dara Stakelum had actually raced back at that stage to try and cut off the danger, and they just didn't manage to do it. So it's an interesting one tactically. Yeah. That teams need to look at, I think.
Cian Tracy's with us as well, who's on co-commentary yesterday. Good evening to you, Cian.
How are you, Ronan?
Did we lack the street smarts to see it out?
It's so hard. All these Munster Championship games, they become really unstructured in the last number of minutes. JJ's talked about long deliveries, and it's funny, you have a game plan, most of the teams are playing through the lines trying to retain possession, and then for the last 5-10 minutes of games it just goes crazy. Billy Nolan was just lumping the ball in on top of the full forward line. Stephen Bennett breaks it. It goes to Kevin Mahoney, and he just bangs it into the back of net, and it's just chaos. It's so hard to set up a defence for that. As JJ also alluded to, Ronan was up the field at that stage, having nailed the point that we looked for all the world was going to be the winner to put us 3 up. But it is very, very hard to set a defence in such an unstructured period of play and get everyone set up. And we saw the result with that goal for Kevin Mahoney.
Did you feel it was a point dropped, or there was a sense, and by a lot of people I spoke to today, that they got into their cars in Waterford yesterday and it felt like a defeat?
You'd have to see it, Ronan, as in that way, in terms of 11 points up at half time. I think with any team, if you're 11 up at half time, you'd be really disappointed not to come away with the win. But that doubled with the fact that we rode out the storm. We got 6 of the last 8 scores in the game. We looked, as I said with Ronan's point, that we come back into it again. We found a new lease of life, new energy, and it looked like it was going to be a really, really big championship win for us. And then the deflation of that last long ball going in, Kevin Mahoney getting the goal. So not only was it the 11-point half-time lead, it was that coupled with the fact to concede a goal with almost the last puck of the game.
Yeah, JJ, I mean, you look at the 3 weeks off, or you look at the 2 games we played so far, and some players haven't reached the heights that they reached last year. Liam's very loyal to his players. He explained why the team selection was as it was, because he's under a bit of pressure to get a team in for lunchtime on Friday, and I understand that, and things have to go to print, and I get that. But is there a sort of an argument now to be made for some significant changes to the team to freshen it up and perhaps reward fellas who might be going well in training who aren't getting the nod, and maybe just to bench a few fellas who clearly after 70 minutes of championship hurling haven't produced what we expected of them?
Yeah, but I guess when you look at the panel and you look at the players at your disposal, there's limited opportunities for that. We're not, Donald Logue might refer to us as the land of milk and honey in terms of Tipperary talent, but I'm afraid when it comes down to it, and it comes down to picking your best 15 at senior intercounty level, it's not quite like that. You are relatively limited. And we were lucky enough, I suppose. We do have some guys that are the newer guys that are coming on and making an impression. And actually, one of the exciting things yesterday was that the guys like Oisin O'Donoghue got man of the match, and he really has developed into a fine player. He's really one that's progressing majorly. Stephen Tobin is another who's shown great form in recent times, and he has come in, and
he's kind of adopted an Oisin. I see his role this year maybe is the one Oisin had last year. Oisin's delighted to have the jersey as the start, but I think what we saw yesterday was Stephen, perhaps his role might be as coming in with 10-15 to go rather than starting him like we did against Cork.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good comparison, and every time he's come on for Liam Cahill, he has shown something. He even in the match against Cork, I mean, when he was replaced at half time, he still was busy in that first half. Won a free, might have got a few more, and it wasn't a total failure on his part by any means. And again, he showed the potential when he came in yesterday. So you do have guys like that, but other than that, you are limited, and I think you're down to a situation of getting the maximum out of some players who may not necessarily last the 70 plus minutes. And then you've got to replace them when that happens. So it's a 20-man game, and it's a matter of shuffling those to the best players around to the best effect to get the maximum out of them. There were 4 changes on the team yesterday from the team which started against Cork, which is a very significant amount of change. So you can go overboard with changing as well. Just changing for the sake of it doesn't achieve anything. And you have to work within the limitations of your panel, and I think that's what Liam Cahill is doing.
Cian, I just want to get your opinion on what I thought was quite pivotal. Waterford scored the first 3 points of the second half. They look like they're on a bit of a charge. We get a penalty, which would have undone the charge, the second half recovery. We would have nipped it quite nipped it early if we'd gotten that penalty. How pivotal do you think that penalty miss was? Because it certainly raised the crowd even further, who were beginning to believe.
Yeah, I think it was a defining moment in the game, and the cheer when Billy Nolan saved the penalty was incredible. So on the back of that little bit of momentum, that Waterford had got. I think Jamie Barron had thundered into the game in those opening minutes of the second half, and he really led the charge. Stephen Bennett was coming into it. But I think that was the moment that it all boils back to, if that ball hits the back of the net, and you would back Darren McCarthy. He's a brilliant penalty taker. We saw it last July in the All-Ireland final where he absolutely roofed the penalty
under pressure,
on Patrick Collins under pressure. And I think it's indicative of Dara's form and just maybe that slight loss of confidence that young players can have. He's had a roller coaster of a 12 months or so between under 20 All-Ireland, Senior All-Ireland, 113 in the Senior All-Ireland, Fitzgibbon Cup, playing really well with Timmy Vara.
Young Player of the Year.
Young Player of the Year, huge pressure on him going into his second season. And it hasn't flowed as well as it has last season. And usually when you see a dead ball striker as accurate and as good as Darren McCarthy hitting a relatively poor penalty by his standards, it just shows it to me. It screams of just that little lack of confidence.
Yeah, perhaps indeed. JJ, some texters asking about the Billy Nolan wasn't on his line. That's hardly ever enforced fully, as far as I know, and I wouldn't have any grapes over that. But the other one is people asking whether it should have been a black card. I'm not so sure you could say it was a clear goal scoring opportunity. I mean, John hadn't even gathered the ball.
Yeah, no, it's just the issue on the black card. And again, my gut reaction when it happened was I was thinking black card. But when you thought about it further, then under the rule, the player has to be in possession. And of course, John McGrath didn't get possession of the ball at all in that particular situation. So the referee was actually right with just the yellow card and the penalty decision. It's you'd normally back Darragh to plant that one, though. Let's not forget he missed one in the league as well. While he did brilliantly in the All-Ireland last year, as Cian said, perhaps maybe a small little bit of a dip in confidence on those. He sent one wide, if you remember, in the league match against Limerick. But I agree, it was a pivotal moment, and another pivotal moment actually sometime later. I think it was about 61 minutes in, where John McGrath had a chance, and again, Billy Nolan did fantastically well. He got out and he got down and just got a touch on it to put it out for a 65. I think either of those goals would really have taken the wind out of Waterford's sails, and it would have been very difficult for them to come back for them. So there was an element of bad luck in that sense. But certainly the penalty was huge because of the roar and the uplift it gave to Waterford. Not as if they needed an uplift at that stage. It threw
more fat on the fire, no doubt about it. Just before I let you both go, I just want to get your view. I don't know how much of it you saw, because you were obviously up and down to Waterford. The Limerick Cork game. What are your thoughts on it, and whether or not you think that Limerick perhaps aren't as good as we imagined they might be?
Yeah, I think the big thing that's going to come out of that Limerick Cork game is the injuries on the Cork side. Robert Downey is out for 6 weeks with an ankle injury, and Cian Joyce out for the year with a cruciate ligament injury. And that is just huge to the centre of that Cork defence. It really looked like, for the first time in a long time, Joyce was the answer to the problems at full back. So they're two massive losses, and the ramifications for Limerick of losing Cian Lynch, who would be really, really disappointed with the double flick of the hurley on Tim O'Mahony, and that coupled with Aaron Gallan, who the best forward in Ireland and such a pivotal outlet for Limerick. Those two missing going into the cauldron that is Ennis next weekend is a massive loss, and that will really be a huge match for both sides. And from a Tipperary point of view, the result of that is going to be pivotal to the rest of our season.
I won't ask you what would be a good result from a Tipperary point of view, but JJ, that is an important thing from a Clare point of view. No Lynch, no Gallan.
It's huge, and Limerick under pressure now after losing that first one, and presumably they won't have Gallan next Sunday from what we hear, and of course Lynch is definitely gone. Two crucial players. I've no doubt what suits Tipperary is for a Limerick win actually here. It's unusual if we were shouting for Limerick, but that's what actually would suit them. But you think of those events like the injuries to both Cian Joyce and Robert Downey yesterday. I think that's massive because the Cork defence already was perhaps seen slightly as maybe their weaker area, that they have really good forwards and two really exciting new players coming into the forward line and so on. But their defence, again, was still seen as an area that teams might profit against. And now here they are, they're after losing their full-back and their centre-back. So that's very serious for them. And it just shows, that the kind of swings and roundabouts that this series is going to go through. I think the win was actually absolutely crucial for Cork yesterday, given the circumstances of no Gillan and Cian Lynch being sent off. It would have been a bad blow for Cork if they'd lost that. But it still leaves the thing very, very open. And I think, as Cian said, Ennis next Sunday is going to be extraordinary. I mean, how that pans out is going to be fascinating to see, and could have a huge bearing on how the thing really plays out.
I'll talk to you next Tuesday to see your analysis of it. But thanks to you both for your time tonight. Thank you both.
Thanks, Ronan.
Not at all. That's JJ Kennedy and Cian Tracy with their thoughts on the game in Waterford yesterday. Lots of texts. I will come to the text in a moment. Just have a quick word with the next man. Tom McGrath. How are you, Tom?
Been better, Ronan.
So you're cross, disappointed or rueful?
No, I think kind of cross, I'd say, at the attitude of a lot of people, but during the second half and at the end of the match yesterday, I think kind of what happened in the second half was the way it finished up was, unfortunately, we could hear lauding a terrific, performance. Had things stayed going as they were, we were in a false position at half time, I suppose, really. Watford had 10 miles the first half. We struggled then to get our hands on ball. Butchered is not the right word, but we got 3 good goal chances that we got 1 point of a return from. And that, swings around those margins. Them little things were happening for us last year. Them breaks were working our way, and we were getting goals out of some of those. We're not getting them this year. But what I thought was very good about the team is that when we went from 11 up to -2, a 13-point swing, no great conditions, we then succeeded in turning the thing around and got ourselves into a position. And I'd be small bit cross about the way we can see that last goal. Looked at it a few times last night, and I think it should have been prevented. Sort of, oftentimes a team will get a goal when they're 2 points down, an awful lot easier than when they're 3 points down. You know what I'm saying? It was disappointing it happened, and but the thing hasn't changed. We have to do it's in our own hands. We need to be clear anyway. And now, depending on the way other things happen, we might be. You might get through on 3 points yet.
I'd be amazed, Tom. I think that to be banking on that now would be. Yeah. I think the only thing you can think of is going and getting 5 points and see what that does to you.
Yeah, well, which that has to be the objective for starters. But I mean, go on the base that Cork win their remaining 2 matches, which with their nose on the injuries now up front, and that's unfortunate too. But they're the little things. Everything seems to be going right for Cork, and then suddenly two critical, cruel blows. Then Limerick have their couple of losses as well, and that'll test. But they're probably panel is probably stronger than Cork's overall. But I'd be hoping that Cork could win the remaining 2 matches, get them to 8, and that we be clear. We have to be clear. There's no 2 ways about it.
You can't dress it any other way, yeah.
But then you see, if Cork don't beat Clare, if Clare beat Cork next Sunday, Clare will become the Thurles.
Well, Clare playing Limerick next Sunday.
Sorry, the Limerick one. Sorry, I should say it. Clare got 4 points. Well, then, we have to beat Limerick to pass them. And then we're dependent on there's different things. But if Cork were to win their 4 matches, they'd get to 8. There's only 12 points then to be divvied out amongst the other 4, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. Yeah. So kind of we'd be there. We'd be even par. We wouldn't be in red figures or anything like that. But no, we have to work out a couple of things. You see, the second half started badly for us. 3 points on the bounce, but then we won the penalty. No, I think lads rubbish and that was soft penalty and all that types. God Almighty, your man just hauled. Oh no, it
was a penalty every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Absolutely. I don't think there's any right thinking person would say that wasn't a penalty.
Yeah, but Watford were giving the referee a bit of a hard time, whether they learned, and they were still giving him a hard time today. We could all do that too. But he kind of seemed to let a good bit go. There's some hard, heavy hits went in, and I think they were no harder, or they were less hard than some of the ones who went in and were let go in the Cork Limerick match as well. So that seems to be the way the refereeing thing has gone. Like, and I fear for the team with the hits that's going in now, that there's somebody going to be badly injured. Rugby had to deal with some of the hits that was going in, and they cleaned it up a fair bit as well. Like,
we have a long way to go, Tom.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're not going to have TMOs.
No, but we rugby has a long way to go. But we're going off the point a little bit. I take that. I think you've made a coherent argument that if we're backing anyone next Sunday, it's going to be Limerick to beat Clare, because you make a very valid point that if Clare get to 4, it's going to be difficult for us.
Well, we have to beat Clare then. Well, then Clare might be a bit easier to beat the following week, because they'd be a little bit, or 2 weeks that take their eye off the ball a small bit. But Clare win in Ennis next Sunday. Their eyes will be focused on the Munster final. No doubt about that, coming to Thurles the 2 weeks later. So we'll find it. But I think we're playing well enough for a lot of the matches not to fear anybody at this stage. I think that's sort of a couple of little things to be burned out here and there, and get that done. And I think we're an awful lot nearer now. People making the point that we're the same position we were after 2 matches last year, but we have two tougher matches, I think, to come this year than we had last year. And don't forget, we were 6 points up against Waterford halfway through the second half last year, and they brought us back level with points as well. Clare brought us back from, was it 9 or 10 below in Ennis last year, and we dug it out and won it from not a great position either. Like, so, I mean, these things happen in matches, and they happen in all matches. I mean, Cork were 12 points up against Clare in Ennis last year.
And
they
only
got
drew.
Back to a draw.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I mean, these things happen in matches. So it's trying to eliminate lost limitation when you are on that back foot. That's what you got to do. Right? So I mean, that's easier said than done.
Tom, I want to ask you about our football performance on Saturday. I think when the football family made their way up to Thurles for that game, a Munster semi-final against Cork, all they really... Their best expectation was that we asked serious questions of Cork and gave a good account of ourselves, and we certainly did that for 45 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's fair comment. Like, I didn't think on the basis of what I saw and heard, we didn't deserve the beating that we got for a finish.
That's my impression from Paul Carroll's commentary, which I was listening to at work. Yeah, I definitely said that.
But then you see Cork produce subs, and then them guys, they're pushing the boat firmer on the throat when they come in, rather than just coming in for, just to savour the occasion. They're coming in playing for a place for the next day, and they'll go at it gung ho. Like, so that was the hard look about it. That's when that. But I think Cork are probably better than they were for a couple of years. That they're making strides, and it'll be interesting to see how they'll go in the Munster final against Kerry now, because Clare asked them loads of questions as well. Like, so kind of. It's early season, I suppose. The bigger teams are sort of their time and their run a bit differently. I think in the football, that these particularly Munster see Donegal caught yesterday as well. Like, so, Mayo caught, and it's just Galway find it hard enough in Carrigan Shannon. I mean, we beat the stuff on our Leitrim like in the league. So you kind of start drawing farm lines for that, and sure, little wonder you don't know where you are then. Like, but no, I think the Tipp lads will. The Tailteann Cup now, the draw hasn't been really kind in that either.
No,
like,
and the away trip to Sligo.
Yeah, like that's not simple either. And no, it depends how Sligo react then to losing to Leitrim. That was a surprise in the Clonmel Championship. So how they'll react to that, like, and that's one for the pressure will be on them, and they'll be at home, and maybe we could do a little better away from home than we are doing at home too. Like, so, no, look, it's I won't say it's a free shot, like, but Sligo will be on a back foot, and the pressure will be on them. Like, so, look, give it a shot and see where it takes you. That's all. It's a learning thing for the lads too. Like, and and Sligo are not, they're not that many steps above us. Like, so, I mean, it's a question of go at it and see what you can do.
Keep asking questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm sure you're aware that the world marathon record was broken. It went under 2 hours today. So, or over the weekend. I'm not so sure whether you challenged it with your run tonight, Tom, but I hope you were happy with your time.
Not really, but maybe you're getting your information. She's getting through quick enough. But
very fast. Not as fast as you're running, though.
3 mile was done tonight and was done pretty quick.
Good man.
Sean Tobin honoured Boris Lee with his pressing to come up and showed a clean pair of heels to everybody in sight. I'm not sure if his time was 4. I think could be 4:20 something. Like there's a bit more in him without a doubt. But good run on the road now into a little bit of a headwind and a little bit of an uphill finish. So yeah, you'd be happy to be counted in the same field as him anyway.
Fair play, Tom. Talk soon, friend.
Man,
thanks indeed. Thanks indeed, Tom McGrath joining us there, fresh from a run. 083 311 3311. I will come to the text after I speak to Ger Canan. How are you, Ger?
How you doing?
Tipper into a Munster final with an as expected win over Limerick. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Limerick are, I suppose, at different stages of development of a new manager in this year, and he's kind of working with the under-23 panel, a lot of young players, some girls bought up from recent good minor teams and stuff. But Tipperary, I suppose, having beaten Cork the week before, would have got in as favourites, and I thought they got the job done quite convincingly. Limerick finished well indeed, but I think the game was over at half time, and I think 8 different scores from Tipp, and I think 25 points altogether. I think tells its own story.
I thought myself that the game was over at half time on Sunday in Walsh Park, but that doesn't always happen. But anyway, be careful saying things like the game was over at half time. But the girls have taken the momentum from the Cork game, I think, and now will face, on the balanced probabilities, Waterford in what I think it could be a humdinger of a final.
Yeah, definitely. Look, they definitely, I suppose, great mood in the camp after the Cork victory, and they went out and played with a team with confidence. I suppose the danger was if you started sluggish and kept Limerick in it, and 40 minutes big crowd, Limerick crowd coming in looking for something to cheer about. But in fairness, I thought Tipp always looked the stronger of the two sides. Limerick played with a sweeper, but I think that worked in Tipperary's advantage really. They had Mairead Evison free at the back, and the backs were in total control. Limerick struggled to score from play for a long time, and Tipp were able to get good ball into the forwards, bypass the sweeper. Cueva Statelin was excellent, Roisin Howard, Eamon McGrath, all the forwards were on fire. So yeah, look, it looks like Waterford have to play Kerry this weekend coming, expecting Waterford to win that. They'll be disappointed they didn't pick up silverware in the league final, so they'll be gunning for Tipp. Don't know. Point of view will be great if it was on before the Tipp and Clare game, but it could be that, or it could be before the Waterford Limerick game. So we don't know yet. But obviously, if it's a double header with the Tipp hurling, it'll be a huge advantage to us. But
yeah, the girls seem to like playing in big stadia,
Yeah, look, it's going to be either Gaelic Grounds or some stadium anyway, but I suppose it's just which game it's going to double header up with. But I suppose it's a great opportunity for this group, and there's a nice break then to the All Ireland Championship. There's another few weeks, so it's a Munster Championship. I think is running better this year. There's a bit more break, and I think teams can go all out to try and win it and know that it'll only be good for them going into an All Ireland series.
Did the minors play this weekend?
No, well, the minor All Ireland was on, but unfortunately we
weren't in it. Yeah, we were. Yeah, that's right.
Won a second minor All-Ireland title, actually manager a third of Sarces and David Maher, so congrats to him. He's after bringing a second All-Ireland title to Kilkenny. Our under-16Bs were out, they were in All-Ireland Shield final and they won that at Galway in the Drummond GA ground, so a great finish to the under-16s development squad team there. They'll be delighted with that success.
Delighted, excellent. Keep us posted on that final and we'll talk in due course, Ger.
Thank you.
Not at all. That's indeed Ger Canan joining us there. Our camogie girls into a senior Munster final, probably against Waterford after that win over Limerick at the weekend. Let's go to some text. Somebody says, if Clare beat Limerick, better for us as Limerick could be nearly out. Yeah, I think you can make an argument in a number of different ways. Somebody said if we'd taken a point on the penalty, it would have killed Waterford's momentum, says the texter. I think if you get a penalty in a Munster Championship, I think you're always going to go for a goal. We're talking about other games. Owen Connolly could take the penalties as well. Listen, the way Dara slotted away that penalty in the All-Ireland final, he could be on the penalties for as long as he wants it, as far as I'm concerned. We could not win any high ball coming in, says one texter. Tipper still a work in progress. The All-Ireland final win was probably ahead of schedule. We got a great tune out of our elder statesman last year. Last year's draw against Limerick was massively positive, while yesterday's felt like a defeat. Hard to see us getting out of Munster this year, to be honest, says this texture. It's a pity we conceded that late goal, says this texture, but we did well to the lads in the response to go 3 up. In 2 weeks we'll be welcome to iron out whatever that third quarter fade out is happening. Perhaps somebody different up front for the with a little bit more pace, says this texter. It's actually 3 weeks we have before the next round of the championship, which is a Saturday night game in Thurles, 7 o'clock throw-in. Somebody says our goalkeeper should have gone down injured when we were 3 points up at the end. We just cannot manage a tight finish. Nicky Quaid goes down injured to kill the game, says one texter. He actually goes down to fiddle with his contact lenses, I think is that particular ploy. Maybe he does have significant contact lens issues, but they always seem to occur at a particular juncture in games, which is slightly curious. 083 311 3311. David Power, how are you?
I'm good, Ronan. How are you keeping?
I'm very well, David. Congratulations. I think I've said this to Ger Canan quite a bit. You know, when you take on Cork in camogie or ladies football, they have been a standard bearer in Munster and indeed Ireland for a number of years. You must be extremely pleased that your girls got one over the Cork senior ladies footballers.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, it was... Look, they won the Division 1 title there. They beat Galway there 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I suppose we did our homework from that. And over the last month, the girls have worked really hard. I suppose, look, we had a mixed league, but actually, I thought on Saturday night we got the benefits from trying different things in the league. And I suppose the last 2 or 3 weeks they really have worked really, really hard, and I thought our fitness levels were just out of this world. The running the girls did was just incredible, and some of the football and some of the scores that were really, really good. And it was really, really, really good, really, really positive. But as I said to the girls, look, I think it's a long time since the Tipp ladies have bet Cork in Championship. But that's no good. We have to back it up now on Sunday against Kerry.
Yeah, so that's the other game I was going to talk about, because Kerry were beaten by Waterford, and now you're seeing it's a 4-team group because Clare and Limerick are not seniors.
Limerick are junior and intermediate.
Yeah, exactly. So, but look at how even it's becoming, and look at how competitive it is. Like, it's not just Cork, Kerry, and like Waterford have such a great tradition in ladies football as well. But I'm just looking at those 4 teams, and would it be fair to say, David, that any one of them can take points off the other?
Absolutely. Like, it wouldn't shock if Kerry and Cork win next weekend, and then all of a sudden the third round becomes 2 semi-finals. That could easily happen, and there's very, very little between both teams. I suppose, look, for us, we were probably going to be going into the 3 games as underdogs, because the other 3 teams are in Division 1.
Higher, yeah.
But for us, look, to be fair, the Tipp ladies have put in huge work over the last number of years. There's a lot of good players, a lot of good people have been involved, and it just doesn't happen overnight either. And to be fair, the girls were absolutely thrilled to see the families and everyone down. That's what it was all about. But we also know, like, look, we got 2 points on the table on Saturday night. But we have to back this up now on Sunday again, which is great, and it's going to be in Clonmel, and hopefully there'll be a big crowd. The fact that there's no men's hurling or men's football on this weekend might focus get more people out in Clonmel. Yeah, it's a bank holiday Sunday, so what more do you want than to go and see the girls on the Western Road? It sounds to me like Tommy Toomey did the homework for you as well in his analysis. I'm sure he'll be looking over that Waterford Kerry game with doing something similar for you. Yeah, absolutely. Look, Tommy.
He's an old friend of this programme. Yeah,
he's always behind the scenes, and I suppose that's me and him are going back a long, long time. We're going back to the time I was over the minor footballer. So, he's a great man, and that's what I said there afterwards. Look, I'm very, very lucky. We have a great backroom team. They're putting in huge work. And look, it's really exciting. It's really, and the big thing, it's the girls to use this belief from this win, because there is every bit as good. If you look at any of the other score lines around the country over the weekend, there was only 2 or 3 points between games. Like Armagh bet Donegal by 3 points.
Meath were beaten.
Kildare bet Meath by 3 points. So there's very little between teams. We bet Donegal in the league. They won Division 2. So we're not a million miles off teams. So it's just to get that belief into the girls that they can be as good as any other team that's out there.
Well, I think a win against Cork does miles wonders for a team's belief at that grade. So many congratulations, David, and thanks for joining us. Best of luck.
Don't hassle.
Best of luck
Thanks,
Sunday.
Ronan.
Thanks
Thank
indeed.
you.
Big game for Tipp footballers, ladies footballers in Clonmel against Kerry next Sunday. Go to it if you can, because a win there and Tipperary are in a Munster Senior ladies football final. Joe Winston is on the line. Joe, have you recovered?
Just about.
For those who haven't been following the exploits of Clonmel Rugby Club, I would say, Joe, that Saturday's game was perhaps the most significant game to take place in Clonmel in a long and proud history of the club.
Absolutely. And great credit goes to the club just for the way they set up the club, bouncy castle, slides for the kids. Just everything was perfect on the day, and the committee deserve great credit for everything they did. So
Clonmel took on Bective Rangers. Big crowd turned up. Hopefully some of that will translate into good attendances next year and people like what they saw. But what they got was, a fine day, dry pitch, two teams went at it and they got a highly competitive game.
Yeah. There was never too much in it. I think we led 14-5 at one stage, but they hit back just before half-time to be within 2 points of us. But every time they scored, we managed to hit back and get that little bit ahead again all the time. And great credit has to go to our kicker, Joey O'Connor, because he got converted all 4 tries and they missed 2 of theirs, and that was the difference in the end. The Clonmel were determined to keep them out.
They had a very good pack and good line-out jumper, good full-back as well. But I suppose collectively, Clonmel were perhaps the better team.
Yeah, I'd say that. And to be fair to Bective, they were very gracious in defeat afterwards. And they said the best team won and we deserved it for finishing top of the league. So, credit to them on that. But they put it up to us.
How important was it to actually win a bit of silverware after what has been a very, very long season where you've jostled for top spot with Thomond, got ahead of Thomond, staved off significant pressure from Thomond, Bective and Dolphin, and then eventually just got over the line? Yeah.
It was, as you say, Thomond with the start, and then Bective, when they beat us up there just before Christmas. We're getting closer, so every time we lost or they lost, but we always managed to stay ahead of them, which was great credit to the lads. They knew what was at stake, and they deserved it because the last couple of years we've been playing well, maybe not getting the luck. But our coaches, Pat O'Connor, and Neville Melbourne, Johnny, Ben, Gareth and Sean all put the effort in and got their message through to the players, and they followed what they were told. So,
next year, there's going to be significant reduction in travel costs. Yeah. Does that give you an opportunity to perhaps grow a little bit more? Take the pressure? Because for senior clubs like Cashel, Nina and yourselves, that is a very significant cost base that you got to cover every year. That is just being lessened slightly for you.
Oh, it has, yeah. We'll be playing a lot of the same teams again next year, so we'll get confidence from having beaten them this season. But it will be harder to go up another division. The top 2 teams will compete for promotion into 2A. So whereas at the moment, top 4 teams all have something to play for, so it's going to be hard that way to get there. But you have to aim as high as you can, so we'll keep doing that.
It's a rising tide floating all boats. I mean, I'm just wondering what this means for the club as a whole. If you just take away, obviously, your first 15, but how does this trickle down into success elsewhere?
Well, our second 15 contested the final of the Munster Junior Plate, which was a great achievement by them. We also won the Munster Senior Plate this year, so that's 2 trophies we picked up. The first 2 trophies are senior clubs. And our underage thriving. A couple of them in finals this weekend. I know one of them won. And we're getting great numbers up there. And it was like on all the kids that were around, and they were brought in for the pictures afterwards on Saturday. And you can see the excitement in the kids. And our team is quite young as well. So they have more connection to maybe the 16, 17, 18-year-olds.
Yeah, indeed.
So, as I say, a lot of clubs are having to amalgamate at underage levels, and we're not. We've got the numbers up there, which again is credit to the underage coaches.
We must discuss at some stage the way that schools kind of get first pick on their players and don't allow players play for their school and their club that probably introduced them to the game in the first place, which would something that a lot of our GA listeners would find absolutely extraordinary, that if you play schools you can't play club. That, I'm sure, is a rule you'd love changed.
Oh yeah, we would. Now they did change it slightly a number of years back, where the Rockwell or private schools competitions were finished, then those lads could come back to the club, or if they weren't involved in the senior squads, they could go back to their club. But the schools would have first call on them. Yeah. But a lot of these kids started their rugby up in Clonmel Rugby Club, and then as they got older, then maybe went off to Rockwell and the likes of those colleges. But they would have always started their rugby in Clonmel.
Joe, we got to talk other sports, but thanks for your time. Many congratulations to all involved. I know it's a massive, massive effort. Great committee, and it's just great to have a day in the sun like that.
Lovely, appreciate that, Ron.
Mind yourself, Joe.
Take care, bye-bye.
All the best. Joe Winston, first team manager of Clonmel Rugby Club, joining us there. And let's just finish off with a word with Barry Ryan. How are you, Barry?
How are you, Ronan?
I'm going to say that we've got to start with Galbally. What a couple of days.
Yes. In the Tipperary Cup.
Tipperary Cup, and then they go and essentially miss out on promotion.
Yeah, so it's kind of all over the place now. Bancha have 2 games in hand. If they win them both, they'll force a playoff with Wildies, and they've also found themselves in the Tipperary Cup final now with a great 2-1 win over Galbally. Yeah, so Galbally had potentially what could have been a great weekend of promotion and get into a Tipperary Cup final, and like the games come thick and fast at this time of the year because the fixtures have to be fulfilled. You have to feel a bit sorry for them. Yeah, I suppose, look, we talked about the ups and downs of the first division, and all of a sudden Bancha sit now in that position where they could get a league title and a Tipperary Cup in the one season, so that's just the magic of that division, and how one thing you think Wildies have it sewn up, then you think now they're going to get caught by Galbally, and now maybe it'll be Bancha. Yeah, because and all of a sudden Ballingarry became the kind of kingmakers or party poopers. I don't know what you call Ballingarry at the moment, but maybe they should look and see whether they can get that form earlier in the season. Yeah, but we've often talked about those teams like Bancha and Ballingarry where there's a lot of GEA and stuff that goes on, and the longer the season goes on, they suddenly really come to the fore. Because they're coming in very fit, I would imagine. Yeah, and they get a big influx of GEA players and stuff like that. And look, it seems to happen a lot during the season, and they come with a wet sail at the end. And Bancha now will be, there'll be tough opponents for Peakville in a Tipperary Cup final, because if Bancha get everybody on the field, they're always a good side. Yeah, they always play good football. And Peak got over St Michael's after extra time. Yeah, Rowan, and look, it's funny, like a lot of the conversations around junior football at the moment are a little bit negative, and the standards gone down a lot and stuff like that, but this fixture is the jewel in the crown. It was absolutely rip-roaring stuff on Sunday. Peakville scored after 90 seconds, Pippi Carroll on a rebound, Kieran Hennessy the great header, Adam Gallagher made an even better save, Pippi was Johnny on the spot, finished at 1-0 up. Then within 10 minutes St Michael's score off a set piece, and all of a sudden it's 1-1, and you're literally catching your breath, and then we get probably a big moment in the game. Mikey Wade is sent off. It's one of those, he's sent off for using a word that you're not allowed to use anymore. Probably we're never allowed to use it now if we're being absolutely honest about it, but it is being clamped down on. I know what you mean. It's probably not the word people think or whatever. It's one I didn't know. I won't get into it. Yeah, no, it's not. I'd have, no, definitely not. I'd have a lot of sympathy for Mikey in terms of, I love how he plays. He's abrasive. He's a ball winner. He gets stuck in. He was going in to back up his mate. It's one of those things, but I'm sure he'll accept the decision, and the referee had no choice, and it is what it is. And look, maybe it's the modern game a little bit as well. But all of a sudden, you think as a contest, the game is over now. Peakville are down to 10. They have to play for the next 65 minutes, a man down. And for the 65 minutes and the 20 minutes of extra time, Peakville are head and shoulders the best team on the pitch, 10 against 11. And I've got to give massive credit to Derek LeVan, the Peakville management. Yeah. They dictated who the extra player was. For the period of 10 minutes after it happened, St Michael's the extra player was David Slattery, and St Michael's were in total ascendancy. And Peakville got to grips with it, got in at half time. decided that the extra player would be the St. Michael's fullbacks, that they go two marking the two centre-backs and keep their three in midfield and play 4-3-2. So now you're going, after the game completely changes, it's all on Peak Villa's terms. There's only one team going to win it with the 10 players, and you're waiting to see what the counter is and how St. Michael's are now going to dictate who the free player is going to be. It never happened. The whole game was played on Peak Villa terms, and that was the difference. St. Michael's then score in the 88th minute totally against the run of play, and you're thinking it's all over. Brilliant finish from the wire up front, and you're going, that's it. And then all of a sudden Tipp equalises in the 90th minute to send us to extra time, and now you're wondering, with having played with 10 men for so long, what will they have left in the legs? They come out in extra time and Peak Villa are totally in the ascendancy again, and Pippi scores a screamer to make it 3-2 and to win it. But for me, obviously huge credit to Pippi. It was a fantastic hat-trick. Mihal Quinlan was exceptional in the middle of the field, but for me, the Peak Villa management team, outstanding. I've never seen a team manipulate the 10 players the way they manipulated it. That at no point could you have pointed out where the free man was. It was just St. Michael's having two fullbacks that don't come forward as the extra players and were of no benefit to them whatsoever. It was a masterclass in coaching.
Sounds like a Leo Beanhacker job, but anyway.
Honest to God, I was standing with a couple of people watching it, and we were just saying, where is the free man? Because there was no free man. Like, it was a masterclass. And I just think, you've got to give them massive credit. They never, ever took a backward step. Pippi scored with 2 minutes to go in extra time to go 3-2 up, and he was shouting on the halfway line at Peak Villa players, do not retreat. Do not retreat. Even at that point, they were not going to retreat with 10 players. It was the bravest performance. There was a time when Peak Villa with 12 players couldn't beat St. Michael's. 10 players, they were head and shoulders the better team, and they never took a backward step. It was magnificent.
Game of the season, yes or no?
All game of the season. It was magnificent. And St. Michael's played their part in that too. Yeah. David Slattery carried the fight to save to Peak Villa in the first half an hour.
I got to go to news, Barry. Got to go to news. But thanks for your time. Thanks indeed. That's all we've time for. Ian O'Connor produced.
Good evening. I'm Tina.